Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, do you recall our roads ever being safe or even referred to as being safe? Well, every year at Christmas, the cry to be even more cautious on our roads gets louder. How will how will we achieve record low numbers of deaths on our roads instead of record highs? During this season, we usually proclaim peace on earth. But where is this peace on our roads? Well, to discuss this and other related issues, we have online Mrs. Deidre Hudson Sinclair, Director of the Road Safety Unit, and Dr. Nadine Spence, Social Commentator. Good morning to you both.
Good morning to you, Reverend.
Great. Good to have you both with us. All right, may I begin with you, Mrs. Hudson Sinclair?
Yes.
Yes, what are the latest statistics, figures in regards to road fatalities in Jamaica, and how does it square with, let's say, the last 2 years?
Well, unfortunately, we have lost over 440 souls on the nation's network.
440?
Over 440. We're at 444 to be exact.
Wow.
And now, as compared to last year, so that's a minimal decrease, less about 1%. As we are now at 442 last year. But, the unfortunate situation is that, although we look at numbers to gauge where we are, we see that the level of indiscipline still continues on our roads. And, we have to, ask the public to be cautious because no one really intends to go out there and have a crash, injure themselves and others. But we have a difficulty in associating the risk that we take as it relates to our driving practices and the end result. It's only until it happens to us or someone we know that we take a stock of how we drive and what our intentions are when we're driving and a level of safety that, we need to take and caution we need to take when we're driving, not only driving, but operating on the road as pedestrians, cyclists, and the like.
Yes. And since we're talking about statistics at this juncture, which parishes have the highest numbers of fatalities?
All right. So St. Catherine is on top of the board in terms of fatalities, followed by Montego, St. James, as well as Westmoreland and St. Anne. So these are top 5, then they usually fall in our top 5 fatalities, what we call parishes with fatalities. And it's an unfortunate situation because of the what we call inter-parish roads, the coastal roads, the main highways. We recognize that we have a hotspot, especially in St. Anne, Landover, and in St. Catherine, it's spread across rural roads. And we recognize that even though we have 2 operating agencies that take care of the road in terms of maintenance, we recognize that we have both hotspots in areas where there's high pedestrian traffic, where we have lots of pedestrians, market areas where people are traversing, and then the main roads where we have these coming through communities, but there's a shop, there's food. So we recognize it when there's people and food and people and activities. Those areas tend to, have a lot of concentration with fatalities, especially in the space of motorcyclists going through areas where there's lots of curves, winding roads. We have a lot of single vehicle crashes when it comes to motorcyclists, and of course, it's impacted by the fact that they don't wear protective devices like helmets, like footwear, boots to protect themselves, shin guards. Things like that. So, so when we talk about crashes, yes, is also behavior. It's behavior in terms of the factors, whether it is lack of protective devices, whether it's the speed that they have, as well coupled with not driving for the road environment they're in. And also we recognize that not every road is perfect. And or adjusting to those scenarios can be very difficult, especially when we're in a rush, aiming to get somewhere by a certain time and not recognizing the environment we're in.
Wow. Dr. Spence?
Yeah,
are you there?
I'm here.
Right. As a social commentator, what are your concerns in regards to these stats?
I think some of the messages that need to target certain groups of people not going out as intensely as it needs to. I think we hear it. I know for one, I'm listening to the Island Traffic Authority and the police um, who have charge of road traffic talk about how people are driving on the road. I know we're seeing the carnage, but I think somehow the people who are the ones who are caught guilty of the kinds of behaviors that put people at risk on the road, those people are not getting the message. Young men are not getting the message. The taxi drivers on the road are not getting the message. The people who are the ones who fall into that category of users who display the kinds of behaviors that put us all at risk. Somehow or the other, somebody like me will become much more cautious, even though I was never in that category. But somehow they don't get it. So I remember listening on the radio a couple of years ago and hearing them describe the particular kinds of behaviors that tells you, the people who ride bikes are most likely to go into the hospital. If they have on slippers, if they don't have on helmet. I remember that particular that particular information that had been collected by a doctor and released and said, these people are at risk on the road because they're engaging in risky kinds of behavior. But at the same time, you still see it. You don't see any change in the behavior to indicate that message got through. So my question is, what strategy are we using to get the message through? Because I think, most of it, the carnage is a result of risky behavior. It's a result of people driving too fast, not using the road code, not understanding how you should drive on the road. And we can see it every day, but we are not seeing a change in any of that behavior. So what do we do to create the behavior change? This is the question I ask. Are we consulting on it? Are we targeting people when they come to renew their license? Are we putting groups of people back into driving? Are we ensuring that people are not buying their license, but that people are going to driving school and that the people who teach them to drive are themselves adequately trained and can impress upon them the importance of obeying the rules? I'm not sure that we are doing the remediation work. And then the other day we would have heard again about people having hundreds of tickets on the road. Can we truly prosecute those who are offenders? Do we have enough policemen and women on the road to ensure that the law is upheld? I have more questions than answers.
and the interesting thing is, we're up on a break. We'll be right back, ladies.
Get better coverage for yourself and your family as low as $800 a month. The time by JN Life Vest from JN Life Insurance is
7:15.
National serving the people of Jamaica with your favorite foods to help you stay strong. Grab your national bag, original, truly Jamaican. Something for all occasion, good for your breakfast, lunch or snack. Grab your national bag, original, truly Jamaican. Best quality, 70 years strong. National build up the nation. National Baking Company, baked with pride since 52.
They're full of life. You're full of love. They're carefree. You care more. That's why we created Child Protector, a critical illness insurance plan from Sagicor Life. It provides coverage for your child in the event of 15 critical illnesses, hospitalization benefits, life insurance, and investment benefits. So make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for Sagicor Child Protector today.
It really tests my patience when I'm trying to do business and have to submit the same personal information over and over again. Now, my OneJN passport experience allows me to breeze through when I do business with the Jamaica National Group. I just have to submit my current personal information one time and bam, I'm recognized at any JN company through my OneJN passport experience. Now that is convenience. Go to jngroup.com/OneJN passport today and sign up. JN, we'll help you find a way.
Me pull up in a the taxi. The hungry feeling it grab me, funds them low. That a mad me, juicy patty handy, change them all hand me. Juicy them a move to scale, feel nice and deep for spend 3 bills. Ma take a bite and it boosts me, everything crisp, everything juicy. From Trelawney to Lindsay, enough location, you just have to choose it. From Portland to Lucy, everything crisp, everything juicy. Satisfy your hunger now with juicy patties.
Boy, I really could have used some data we lost for days this Christmas. Every minute it done. Me feel like me just have to finally make the switch.
Make the move and switch to Jamaica's fastest, most reliable network this holiday season. Digicel is giving you a free 28-day Prime Rata bundle and 25% discount on 7 and 28 days Prime Rata bundles for the next 6 months when you switch. Plus an entry into the Nuff Pickings promotion where you could win a share of over $16 million in cash and prizes. So no bother with the delay. Visit a Digicel store and switch today. Visit DigicelJamaica.com for terms and conditions. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting Indian Lotteries Act. Promotion valid November 18, 2022 to December 29, 2022.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this, the first watch, we're looking on the carnage on the roads, especially during Christmas time. How do we cut this carnage on the road? And in so doing, we have online Mrs. DJ Hudson Sinclair, Director of the Road Safety Unit, and Dr. Nadine Spence, Social Commentator. Mrs. Hudson Sinclair.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Spencer, she had more questions and answers.
Yes, and rightly so. And what I wanted to outline is that, and she's right about the many different factors that affect road safety. There is education, there is enforcement, and there's also legislation. So let's tackle it from education. So she said, is the government taking appropriate steps to target specific groups? So as you know, motorcyclists are 30% of fatalities. They represent the majority. And the Road Safety Unit, the ministries through the National Road Safety Council and other road safety stakeholders, including insurance, including the law enforcement, have taken great steps to actually have a motorcycle safe biker program, which we have been training bikers in hotspot communities. And we did one last week in Mountain St. Elizabeth, and we've been targeting areas in Westmoreland to engage them, meaning, and we're engaging persons who we would, who don't have licenses, who are riding, who have licenses, who are riding, about their practices. And this program is, that was led by the council in conjunction with the SIA, where we've gotten helmets donated, and we've, apart from teaching them safe riding, having the police officers from the public safety and traffic unit showing them how to ride and going through, the steps in driving motorcycles carefully. We give them a helmet for themselves and for their fellow passengers and go through a sort of training because we want to meet persons where they are. So that is one of the ways we've been targeting one of the vulnerable road users and one of our, high critical fatality rates in terms of motorcycles, where we've been trying to target those particular groups. As she said, she mentioned taxi operators. Now, we have to recognize with our PPV passengers that, one, there's competing interests for them. And it has to do a lot with our culture in terms of one person's going out on the road and their aim is making money and not relying on safety. And we've been going out to groups of taxis with different organizations, with JATU, with different private driving institutions who go out and hold sessions with them. But we realize that when we're holding these sessions, the timing of it has to be either late in the evening when they're off the road or really early in the morning. So yes, there are efforts being made, especially what we would consider persons where would group in what we call it, where they were making a negative impact on the spaces. So the government and other private and other what we call NGOs have been trying to go out and reach out to them. Now, we recognize that education is just one part, and she made even a point about who is teaching who to drive and what are they learning. And, with the act, with ITA coming on stream as a authority and as a single statutory body now, we're recognizing that, one, the certification of driving school and the importance of encouraging persons to get that level of education, especially when it comes to defensive driving, because we recognize in the past that we were focused on obeying laws, and if there's no level of enforcement to obey the laws, and we can get away with it.
What is defensive driving, Mrs. Hudson?
Well, defensive driving is driving to one, assessing the risk. So you're going to be one observing. Then we're going to be driving and anticipating what the potential risks are. And once we've identified what those potential risks are, driving or changing our driving pattern to avoid such a risk. So we're driving defensively. So we're not driving for ourselves and getting to where we're going. We're going to start anticipating persons doing something that is negative or that could cause a risk or could cause a crash. So that is the whole premise of defensive driving. So we recognize that when we in the past focusing on obeying the laws is just one level. That's the most important level, but there's a next level in terms of engendering a culture of safety and safe driving, where we're anticipating risk and recognizing what we can do to lower our risk as drivers, as road users. So that's one aspect of it. Now, we recognize that the influx, where we were 10 years ago with the amount of vehicles that are on the road.
Right.
It's way more than, we've ever had before with the introduction of motorcycles because of COVID and the ability to make a living, because we had a lot of influxes in that during that time with businesses starting with motorcycling. So we recognize now, okay, how do we ensure that we are enforcing? No, enforcing comes in a part of practical enforcement, physical police, and technology to recognize when people are breaking the law and, putting necessary punitive damage. And the government is on its way in terms of, one, getting more police officers to help with enforcement. But we recognize now we have to rely more so on technology to increase enforcement. And that is now the way forward and the push.
Mm-hmm.
The legislation in itself, she said, there were drivers out there with hundreds of tickets, and she's correct. However, we recognize this, and the government is treating with that by the act, recognizing that, one, the ability for all entities to speak to each other, the courts, the police, and the Island Traffic Authority. So when a man has racked up 100 tickets and then take away his license, we can know the ability. If he comes back and say, I lost my license, IT can now see, identify, say, no, that's not the case, but you have X amount of tickets. First time 10 years ago, a person wanted to know how much tickets they had. We have an app for that now, because we want to recognize that people are saying, okay, the law is coming up, we need to pay off these tickets. What do we do? And it's coming to a point where people are reckoning with what their past activities and what that implies for them under the new act.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
we have these agencies that are now speaking to each other that, in the act, and I don't want to get too much into the act, but we recognize that if it is that you have these outstanding tickets, you won't be able to do certain things, renew license, all of these activities that you would want before. So there are measures there to keep and hold citizens accountable, and or us as entities as a government to hold us accountable, because we are now seeing and speaking to each other in identifying our areas. So these are some of the aspects that we're lost.
Right, a mouthful there. Dr. Spence, you have heard the responses. Mrs. Hudson Sinclair mentioned more than one occasion the act, and I'm suspecting she's talking about the new Traffic Road Act. This act has not been activated.
No.
Dr. Spence, your concerns there? Because all of this time from 2018 and so on, we have been working on this. It's at this point now. What's going on? Concerns?
Well, I've been hearing about it more and more, and I'm hearing that a date is affixed to it for January, I think. I know very well that we have a habit in Jamaica of taking laws to a particular stage and then leaving it there. So I'm hoping to hear more about the actual ascension date when the law will come in effect. I think I don't know. It might have been said, but I don't know that I have heard of the date. The date when the law will come into effect. That's important. I think I hear about the law and I hear that it promises a lot of things. But in Jamaica, we are not short on laws. It's not.
Yes.
Even though we have some laws that need updating and we need to continually review our laws, and our process of development of laws is extremely slow and sometimes even tortuously slow. That's part of the issue. I think for me, the most substantial part of the issue is the enforcement of the law. And the agencies that have responsibility for safety on our roads and the control of traffic on our roads, those agencies being connected somehow. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to be through the same board. I'm not sure what the institute, we hear about the legislative changes. I think an important thing that we need to hear is what the institutional changes will be that the legislation will bring on. One of the things we need to do in Jamaica as well is drill down. When we hear about a legislation, we have to ask, okay, what happened to the institutional arrangement to make that legislation possible? Where is the policy? What does the policy look like to make the legislation possible? What's the programmatic outline for the legislation to be possible? And in that programmatic outline, how does the budget look, and do we have the budget to make it come on stream? And will we have the personnel, because there are more than likely be more people needed to make the new legislation work. So for me, legislation is an important step, right? But what are the other critical things? Because you can have a law and you declare that you have a law, and then the law stay in the law book and nobody knows how to make the law work. I am hoping that we have done all the work and we don't hear that, okay, the law having been passed, we then had to go and set up the institutions. I would like to know that the institutions that needed to do the work to set up the framework for the law to work have already begun. So we don't hear that the law is in effect, say, January or February, and then we have to have a long time of another 6 months or a year before it is actually put into action, because we never thought of what needs to happen for the law to get to the point where the rubber hits the road. You understand what I mean?
Yes. And of course, not when Parliament wants to pass something quickly, they can do it in one day.
They can do it in a day, but then will it take effect in a year or two? I remember contributing to the Sexual Offences Act Review of 2017, and it took 3 years for us to hear that it eventually got through both houses, and then we're still waiting on it to be put in effect. And we are now talking about the review of the Sexual Offences Act again, and I don't know which act we are reviewing, if it is the one that doesn't have an ascension date, the one that we reviewed in 2017, So we have some bad practices in Jamaica. We have very good ideas.
We have to leave it there, of course. But I want to thank you both ladies for joining us. Compliments of the season. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Talk to Jane Bank today to find out about achieving your own sweet home in 30 days. The time by Jane Bank Mortgage is
just about 7:31 on the Sound of Love 101, the family station.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
Importers. The Jamaica Customs Agency is making its contactless clearance process for non-commercial shipments available until January 6, 2023. This will enable you to clear your cargo without having to visit a warehouse to do a physical inspection. Here are your options. You may request contactless clearance through your freight forwarder. Your freight forwarder may offer contactless clearance to you. Your agent will indicate if you've been selected under the contactless clearance process. Importers, use contactless clearance and avoid the wait. For further details, email contactlessclearance@jca.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
Hey, my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status, if you consider, at least if a test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late, so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory, really long life, our story. You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Go HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Really long life, our story. Real long life was a youth coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
You know, it really tests my patience when I'm trying to do business and have to submit the same personal information over and over again. No, my 1JN passport experience allows me to breeze through when I do business with the Jamaica National Group. I just have to submit my current personal information one time and bam, I'm recognized at any JN company through my 1JN passport experience. Now that is convenience. Go to jngroup.com/1JN passport today and sign up. JN will help you find a way.
We're counting down the days to that magical time of year. And at Active Home Center, we have so many gifts to share. Let's get together for the holidays and make every room and floor feel the magic this Christmas from the treasures we have in store. Tiles, kitchen and appliances, windows and doors, bathrooms, furniture, lighting, and so much more. Visit our showrooms in Kingston and Montego Bay or online at activehomecenter.com. Active Home Center. More savings, more choices.
Building your future, helping you everything that you do. We're in your corner, supporting you. I'm gonna keep my goals on track, keep moving up, no turning back. I got Sagicor Bank, Sagicor in my corner. Nothing's gonna stand up in my way. I'm moving to a brighter day with Sagicor Bank in my corner.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Well, let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, 14 cops on killer radar. Police flagged in 112 shooting deaths over 11 years, says Indicom. Also in the Gleaner, government not ruling out public-private prison. Wonder what's that about? And then in the Observer, what about us? MPs demand information about their new compensation package. We also see in the Observer record number of students enrolled in sixth form. Well, that's good news. Loop News. Double murder at bar in Maxfield Avenue area of St. Andrew. Oh boy. And then we see that stolen phones won't work anymore. Digicel warns thieves. High time. Well, those are some of the major stories and headlines in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What measures would make the roads safer this Christmas? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Let's give ourselves the best gift yet. Great mobile and internet.
value the whole year long. Garden Road's the best to get. Flo has savings just for you. Give great Christmas gifts, it's true. Samsung tablet for my boo. Our moments together with Flo Garden Road, it's better. This Christmas, Flo gives the best to you.
With Garden Road, get a Samsung tablet or a phone for just $999 plus GCT.
Flo gives the best to you.
Conditions apply.
NIS pensioners' completed life certificates are to be submitted to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security once every 4 months. Check the return date on your life certificates and submit before the due date. For further information, contact the National Insurance Scheme at 876-922-8000-14 or visit the Ministry's website. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you. A message from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security.
The Trust and Corporate Services Providers Act 2017 and the Trust and Corporate Services Providers Regulations 2022 require that individuals and corporate entities be licensed by the Financial Services Commission. Individuals and entities that were providing a corporate or trust service before April 25, 2022 must therefore submit an application to the FSC for their appropriate license on or before April 24, 2023. Relevant stakeholders are encouraged to apply now. Application forms may be obtained from the FSC's website at www.fscjamaica.org.
Importers. The Jamaica Customs Agency is making its contactless clearance process for non-commercial shipments available until January 6, 2023. This will enable you to clear your cargo without having to visit a warehouse to do a physical inspection. Here are your options. You may request contactless clearance through your freight forwarder. Your freight forwarder may offer contactless clearance to you. Your agent will indicate if you've been selected under the contactless clearance process. Importers, use contactless clearance and avoid the wait. For further details, email contactlessclearance@jca.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. As we segue into the second watch, have you heard about Operation Birthright? Well, it is up and running. It actually began in the parish of Westmoreland earlier this month. So, what is this Operation Birthright all about? And what does it have to do with the citizens of this country? Well, to answer these and other related questions, we have joining us so far Mr. Charlton McFarlane, CEO of the Registrar General's Department. And we are hoped to be joined by MP Floyd Green. Good morning to you, Mr. McFarlane.
Good morning, Sir Dylan. How are you doing?
I am well complete of the season.
Thank you, my brother. Same to you. Same to you.
Great. All right, let me get the ball kicked off. Use a football analogy.
Yeah.
Mr. McFarlane, what is your understanding so far of this Operation Birthright?
So, Operation Birthright is a fantastic program being championed by the government at this time, and primarily through the Office of the Prime Minister under the National Identification Systems Project, where Jamaicans who are considered financially vulnerable and earn below a particular income threshold, and who at the same time have never been in receipt of a computer-generated birth certificate, which is the new birth certificate, the ones that most persons have on the blue and pinkish paper. So for persons who are not who have never received one of those and earn below a particular income threshold, the government has put aside funding to support those persons in acquiring their birth certificate through the RGD. Right? So it is really a social intervention that is geared at a number of things. One, it is geared at improving the lives of persons, because as we all understand and appreciate by now, having a birth certificate is really fundamental and is really critical to your entry into or your ability to access other benefits, such as social services and educational services, such as financial inclusion and having a bank account and so on. All of those services, they require at the very base of it a birth certificate. In addition, it is also linked to the National ID project, the National Identification System project, because enrollment in the NIDS system requires persons who are born in Jamaica to be in receipt of a birth certificate. So what the government is trying to do is to ensure that they have minimized, if not totally eliminate, all possible barriers to persons who will request to be enrolled in the National Identification Systems project. So it is twofold. It is geared towards removing any barrier towards enrolling in NIDS, but also having a birth certificate is really a public benefit and as such will allow persons to be able to access other services, whether in the public space or in the private space. So it's really a fantastic initiative, and it's completely funded by the government at this time. So persons who meet the qualification criteria, they will not be required to pay anything. The government has taken on and absorbed the cost of this initiative 100%.
Oh boy, a number of questions arise out of that. The first one, though, you mentioned those who earned or earning below a particular income threshold. Could you say more on that, please? More definitely. What is that income threshold that we're talking about?
All right. So the income threshold speaks to a monthly income of $37,000 or below. Right? So anybody who $37,000 or below per month. So
gross or net?
What was that?
Gross or net?
Gross.
Okay.
I mean, if you can, you have to remember as well in that dialogue that really and truly persons who earn $37,000 or less would not be those would ultimately be earning less than $1.5 million per year. And as such, they will not be required to, submit or make payments in terms of PAYE and so on, in terms of, not PAYE, income taxes, right? So it is really on the gross.
And any reason for that figure? An arrival of that figure of 37,000 gross per month? Or why that figure?
So I'm not in a position to tell you why that figure. I can assume it's probably linked to other criteria within the social sector space and the policies that govern access to social services. But that decision was made at the policy level, and as such, at the RGD, we focus at the operational and the implementation level. So I cannot tell you specifically or definitively why that figure, but I assume it must be based on what obtains now in terms of other social benefits benchmark.
Yes. And is there a quota? Is there a figure in terms of how many persons this is expected to benefit? In terms of maximum numbers.
All right. So at the moment, no, and in this edition of it, the government is seeking to assist a minimum of 11,000 Jamaicans right across the board.
Hold on, you said minimum, not maximum.
Well,
did I hear you clearly?
Yeah. A minimum at this point, right, of 11,000 Jamaicans.
I am seeing an article. Mr. Mafan, where the minister is quoted as saying, to ensure that all Jamaicans are accounted for, and 11,000 is mentioned. Only 11,000.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. For this component, for what we have launched now, the target is 11,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if at the end of it, if the program will be expanded or extended. But right now, what we have budgeted for and what we have in terms of fiscal space, the target is 11,000.
So it sounds like a maximum, doesn't it?
Well, Yeah, that's a maximum or minimum. It's really and truly, as I can say, the only thing I can say is that is the target right now, and that target is based upon the resources that we have available to us at this moment.
Yes. And if that is exceeded, what will happen? If you have more than 11,000 applying, let's say you have 12, 13.
Well, again, if that is exceeded, then what we will need is policy directive at a higher level in order to process beyond that, right? So really and truly, that is something for our policymakers to speak on. However, the instructions that we would have received at the RGD is that the budget space right now is to facilitate 11,000 Jamaicans over the next year and a half.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Thank you.
Okay.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
PSOJ's Crime Stop Jamaica Unsolved. We need your help to solve the murder of 38-year-old businessman Kamar Barrett. Wednesday, October 26, 2022, 11:05 a.m., Tamarind Avenue, Kingston 10. A black Honda HRV pulled up. Arguing was heard and then explosions. A body was pushed from the car and it sped off. Police found the body of Mr. Kamar Barrett lying face down in the road. He had been shot in the head. Crime Stop and concerned citizens are offering a total reward of $500,000 for information leading to an arrest and charge. Call Crime Stop Jamaica 311. Solving crime pays.
Colgate Triple Action. 3 benefits for a deep clean. As a mother, you always want to give the best to your family and to make them happy. With Colgate Triple Action, you give them 3 reasons to smile. Cavity protection, whiter teeth, and fresh breath. A unique formula with a minty flavor they will love. Colgate Triple Action. Find it at your favorite store.
You work hard to make Jamaica a first-class destination. Isn't it time you receive the 5-star benefits? Retire smarter with the Tourism Workers Pension Scheme, a portable plan that also provides your family with financial security in case of your untimely death. It's easy, affordable, and accessible online. Retire and relax with the Tourism Workers Pension Scheme. Visit twps.myguardiangroup.com or call 876-927-4105. Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
Hey, my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status if you consider. At least if a test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late, so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory. Really long life, our story. You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Go HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Really long life, our story. Real long life with a youth coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
How will you be spending the holidays?
I am going to spend time with my family in the country.
I'll be spending the holidays abroad.
Needing fun and more fun.
I'll be spending on gifts for everyone. No matter how you plan to spend the holidays, make sure you're spending with your Sagicor Bank credit card. You'll earn rewards for every dollar you spend. Spend the holidays doing what you like with the people you love and the card that rewards you as you spend. Sagicor Bank credit cards. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And in this the second watch, the second segment really of the second watch. We're looking on the whole matter of this new initiative that is had by the government of Jamaica and the RGD, known as the Operation Birthright. And in so doing, we have online Mr. Charlton McFarlane, CEO of the RGD, who has been doing a great job of explaining to us what this initiative is all about. Mr. McFarlane, still there?
I'm still here.
Great. Now, approximately what percentage of the population would you say does not have this electronic generated birth certificate? You have any idea?
Empirically, no. We don't have that because that's a specific question. Because what you ask is, how many persons or what proportion don't have a copy of the new birth certificate? That's very different from persons who are not who are not in possession of a birth certificate, right? So that's very different. So no, we at the RGD, unfortunately, we don't have any numbers to suggest what proportion of the population are not in receipt of the computer-generated birth certificate. What I can tell you, though, is that over the years, since we have commenced issuing the computer-generated birth certificate, we would have generated in excess of about 2 million, and we would have started issuing the computer-generated birth certificate in 2001.
So our population is what? Near to 3 million now?
Yes.
Right. So we there's a little maths there, eh? I'm just wondering though, if the aim is to ensure, and I'm quoting, that all Jamaicans are accounted for, with 11,000 only, shouldn't perhaps the government do it for everybody else?
Well, we have to recall, it's two criteria towards qualification, right? One is to be financially vulnerable, and the benchmark there is persons earning below $37,000. So essentially, that balance somebody like you who earn, in the millions per se. The government would not necessarily. The government would not necessarily think that you persons who are willing and able to pay for this certificate would benefit from this. So what we are targeting is a specific subsection of the population. It's a small enough intersection of persons who earn below a particular amount, and of those persons who earn below a particular amount, those persons who would have never received a computer-generated birth certificate. I must also say, though, that this is not the only intervention that the government would have implemented over the years in order to get individuals to access their birth certificates at minimum or no cost. You can recall from 2007, the government would have mandated by policy that every newborn in Jamaica would be qualified for a first free birth certificate, right? And that again would cover everybody, every child that is born since 2007, irrespective of your socioeconomic status. So the government has a number of programs. We also have social partnerships with Jamaica Social Investment Fund through their community development project, right? Where persons in volatile communities, when we go on outreaches, those persons who qualify for needing birth certificates, they will get it at a subsidized rate. We have partnerships with the Jamaica Council of Persons with Disabilities. So there are a number of partnerships that the government has running.
And as you mentioned government, I'm understanding that we now have online Minister Floyd Green. Welcome, Minister.
Morning to all the listeners.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Right. We have about 4 minutes. I guess you have heard from what was said. Why only 11,000 though free certificates?
No, so I think, and thankfully our CEO from the RGD is on, and I think would have outlined the thinking of the government. So what we looked at is to design a comprehensive approach that would capture the most vulnerable. Right now, remember, regularly people can apply. If you don't have a birth certificate, there is a process through which can apply to the RGD to get that birth certificate, and that operates every day. But there's a cost attached to it. So there is an option for people who can afford to. What we have found, however, is that there are a number of people who are unable to afford to apply, and those are normally the most vulnerable. There's a lot of people in our disabled community. There are a lot of our elderly people who are on things like pension or on PATH, and they're just unable. And unfortunately, not having a birth certificate keeps so many doors unlocked. So what we decided to do is to design a comprehensive approach where we could find those most vulnerable, because one of the challenges to find them, because a lot of them are out of a number of systems. So to find those most vulnerable and to get them into this process. I would say we started with a number of 11,000. We've looked at our budget, what we could do reasonably, and we believe that those are among the most vulnerable. And if we get to that number, we still see that there is a need, then we will move forward.
Yeah. And how will this be done now? Any idea you can give us in terms of the process?
Yeah, so people can apply in terms of they can go online, they can go on the RGD website, they can go on a website called NIDSFacts, NIDSFACTS.com, and they can download the application form, or they can walk into RGD office and they can give you a physical copy of the application form. What happens? You fill out the application form to ensure that we are getting the most vulnerable. You have to be recommended by someone. But what we've done is to ensure that we have a very wide number of people who can recommend you. So it can be recommended by your member of parliament, by a justice of the peace, by your doctor, by your parish councillor,
Minister of Religion.
Yes, of course, I'm Minister of Religion, and I'm appealing to all the ministers of religions across all the churches. If you know people in your congregation or outside of your congregation that do not have a birth certificate that are in need, you know what I've found? A lot of people come across people almost daily who need this sort of support. So we're in the ministers of religion. You could download the form, or you could go to the RGD, collect a number of forms. You could help the person fill it out on their behalf. You would have to be that recommended party, and then you submit the form to your nearest RGD office. And once you do that, we take the process. And I want to say it is open to those who believe they may have had a birth certificate, but they don't have one, or those who believe that they were never registered. So even if you believe that at the time your parents never registered you at all, that is not a bar. The RGD has a process where once it comes in, and they'll reach out to you and try and get some information, and once they can verify a number of things, then they can issue a birth certificate.
5 seconds, Minister Green. Is there a deadline?
We haven't set a deadline yet. What we are now in the process is ramping up the communications. Thankfully, we have seen an uptick in the applications. We just handed out our first birth certificate under the program in Beeston Spring, Westmoreland, on Friday. And I mean, Tina, she was so elated, so excited. As she said, 42 years without one. She's happy she has one. So there's no deadline yet. So what I would want to say to people, let us apply now, so that we can look at the numbers and see if in the next financial year, if we need any addition. So we would love to get through this 11,000 in this financial year, which closes the 31st of March.
Right. Okay, well, we have to leave it there. Mr. McFarlane, thanks for joining us and filling in while the minister was not yet online. Thank you, Minister, for joining us. Have
anytime.
Safe and productive day. Compliments for the team.
That's your thank you.
Take care, man.
I'll see you.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information or get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-9596-7. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I am Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and watchful as I hand you back to Love in the Morning with Jukal Daya.